Instead of going under, cause I'm in too deep, and I'm trying to keep all the thoughts in my head. Instead of going under. All right, he'll be joining me soon. Yeah, just go ahead and start. I've been recording for 5 minutes already. Get going, brother.
Well, I'm recording now.
Epic. Okay. Welcome back to Garfinomics, the world's best official, unofficial Garfield based economics and politics podcast. I'm your host, and I am joined today by a very special guest, the literature expert, who is here today to talk with us about the importance of the written work in not only the academic space, but also in the cultural space. So, welcome to the show, literature expert. How are you doing today?
I am doing on a scale of 1 to 10,
Mhm.
7.3, just like Dave Portnoy's fucking pizza.
That's you know what that's pretty good. That's what I like to hear. I think 7.3 that's above average, so that means pretty good in my book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a flowy in honor of the subject matter for today. I've got sort of a flowy white aristocratic shirt on. I kind of look like Oscar Wilde if he took the coat off. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, and I'm drinking a coffee that is well, it was made so poorly, it tastes more like water than it does taste like coffee. But I'm trying to get in the headspace of a writer who's addicted to caffeine and cigarettes. But
Well,
I
I'm
don't know.
not addicted to cigarettes, but I mean, coffee's definitely a good one.
It's a classic. Anytime I see a guy down at the coffee shop who looks like a guy who's engaging in the literary pursuits, he's got a journal open, he's penning in, or he's on a laptop, he's on a MacBook, whatever. He always looks like a disgruntled guy between the ages of 35 to 45, long hair, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, does not want to be bothered. And
Definitely probably goes to Starbucks a little bit too much too.
No. Oh no, he's too good for Starbucks.
Oh,
He only goes to the boutique
okay.
local coffee shops, you know what I mean?
Okay, okay.
Uh
Okay.
yeah, I was on a airplane ride. I flew from DFW to Portland, Oregon, and on the plane ride over there, I was sat next to this guy who looked exactly like one of the consultants from Office Space, if you've ever seen that movie.
I've seen that movie. That's a good movie.
Yeah. So you know the consultants, the dude with the glasses and the suspenders, and
Yeah.
who they're like, "What do you do here?" Okay, so this dude looked almost exactly like that. I sat next to him on the plane, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I sat next to him, and he basically harumphed at me, and the entire plane ride he was scribbling in like a notepad, and it looked
Hmm.
like he was writing something like a novel or a novella or something. I have no idea, but he
Hmm.
he was
Hmm.
disgruntled and
Hmm.
just in his own head working
Uh,
on something.
That's definitely a somebody who is in the literature space. Most of us are pretty
Hmm.
cranky, very isolated. Read a little bit too much dark fantasy, and write to ourselves and think a little bit too much in our own thoughts.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see you getting lost in your own head. I feel like when I see a literature guy, I can identify. You can spot them a mile away.
Wow.
They're in there. They're stewing. They're brewing. They got something cooking. And you know what? I say let them cook. I say let's see what they got. Let's see what they're gonna come out with.
Hmm.
Uh, anyways, uh, what would you? I wanted to get you on because I know you have some unique opinions, and because you yourself, you are, we could consider you an academic in the sense that you have you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have or you are pursuing an advanced degree in the literature space.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just got my bachelor's this
mhm.
past May, and I'm going for my master's in the fall.
Very good. Okay. So
Uh,
you're pursuing that advanced, uh, sense of knowledge within the space. So, for our purposes, that makes you an expert on Garfinomics, folks. If you have some sort of degree or aspiration in a field, guess what, baby? You're an expert. So, with you being the expert here, I know you have some unique opinions. I wanted to bring you on because I remember the first time we talked, you had mentioned that the criterion for meeting the definition of being a literary work or a piece of literature is actually sort of loosely defined. And I actually did a little bit of research, and you are 100% correct. The who gets to decide what is literature and what isn't it's very broad. It's either something that's won an award, or scholars have designated it as such, um, or something that is just so massively popular or culturally relevant as to not be able to be ignored by any sort of institution.
Hmm.
Uh, so, and I know that you had feelings on that too, because you had mentioned something like where you thought that with this vague and broad description, that things like even like scripts for movies, like you were talking about how Jaws, you thought the script for Jaws was just such a powerful piece of written work that you yourself would classify it as literature, even though you know literary institutions or academics probably wouldn't. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, and
I
you
I
want to
I
you want to talk a
prefer it.
little bit about that?
Yeah, I prefer it over Moby Dick. I remember that conversation, and I always say this because Moby Dick, even though I, to be fair, I've never actually read Moby Dick,
Hmm.
but from the bits I have, heard of it, and it's incredibly elongated. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
one of those works where the writer essentially just decides to make every like page filler for like 300 pages and
Hmm.
ongoing. So, and that's considered literature. But the thing is, right, like Jaws, which is way more compact, way more you know, able to take advantage of the script and the art of cinema as well, is able to compact those same emotions that Moby Dick has, those same themes and everything, in the span of an hour and a half.
Right.
A matter of fact, you could just watch the scene where they're all drunk on the ship, and that's literally Moby Dick. It's the same.
Yeah.
There's the same. Is the same exact themes and everything.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
We could boil down such cinematic works like The Lighthouse as just let's not belabor the point. Two guys get drunk and lose their minds on a lighthouse.
I
You
never.
know.
I've watched a lot of video essays on the Lighthouse. I've never
Hmm.
actually watched it.
Oh, you should. It's
Like,
great.
oh yeah, no, I know. I've watched like scenes of the shit. It is really good from what I saw.
Yeah,
Like,
it's one of those movies. I went it. I saw it in the theaters, and I made the mistake because sometimes what I like to do before I see a movie is I like to get pretty wasted. Actually, I like to go
hmm,
into the movie theater about 3 or 4 beers deep,
hmm,
and this was a movie you did not want to be drunk while you watched it because
no,
it it
no,
just
you really didn't.
the whole movie is just spinning around them getting insanely drunk and losing their minds, and I was drunk and I felt like I was there losing my mind. Not a good time. If you see The Lighthouse, folks, please don't get hammered before seeing it. It's not going to be a good time. You'll
What was
probably
your
relate to the characters a lot more, but
what was your experience seeing the scene with Willem Dafoe? I forget if it was he was having sex with an octopus or a fish creature on the very top of the lighthouse.
yeah. So basically, at that point in the film, I had become just completely detached from all sense of reality. I had no fucking idea what was going on. I saw him up there with the fish creature. Just he was basking in the light of the lighthouse every night, and then the fucking fish creature thing he had on him. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was just like, okay, all right, we have we have engaged in a transition between the world of the material to the world of the abstract here. I have no fucking idea what's going on anymore.
She, a literature major, would tell you that that is a metaphor for the isolations sailors feel uh, on back in the 1900s.
Oh, well, I think no, I think that's 100% correct, man. Like you could see it. There was fucking what's his face? What's that actor who's not Willem Dafoe?
Robert
Oh, what's
Patterson.
his Yes, Robert Patterson. I mean, he sees like a crudely carved little statue of like a mermaid woman, and then he starts like jacking off all the time and fantasizing about fucking a fish lady. Uh like it's obviously the theme of isolation runs deep in that movie.
Oh
Uh
yeah.
yeah. But in the same way that I think you sort of considering broadening sort of the scope of the literary definition to include written works such as scripts for films or theater productions. I gotta say, we are a Garfield based show. Okay, Garfield is the greatest comic according to the views of the Garphonomics podcast. And we're going to go ahead right now on record and say that Garfield is a piece of literature. It is an American manga
No,
that should be entered into the literary canon of
no
American
debate.
literature.
No debate. No debate.
No
To be
debate.
honest, no
No
debate.
debate. There's endless ways you can interpret it. I don't know if you've ever seen Garfield comic strips where they've completely removed Garfield from the comic strips and it's just John. Um, but it just there are endless ways of removing characters from the comic strips that that really turn it into something quite dark and quite worthy of analysis. I think somebody did a really great introspective where they did remove Garfield from the comics and it was just John in each panel. And it goes from a comic that's based around humor to a comic about a man losing his mind and being lonely and just uh, hopelessly depressed.
Did you
And it's
ever?
really, really bizarre how removing one character completely changes the nature of the
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Did you ever see the the Super Eye Patch Wolf essay video like a couple years ago?
I don't think so, but I do love YouTube essays. Tell
It's
me about it.
called how Garfield or how the internet ruined Garfield or something of that nature.
Mm,
And in the video,
like we're
it's
doing right now.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, in the video, he compared Garfield to a almost eldritch Lovecraftian monster that
mm,
consumes John's every being basically. And also like it's a very good video. I highly recommend it. And how John is sort of just ever consumed by Garfield.
I would agree with that. I'm gonna go check that out after this. Actually,
Good. I'll send it to you. It's a very good. It's like an hour long. Very good video.
please
Uh,
send it to me. I'm gonna make lunch later, and I'm gonna watch it while I'm making lunch. But I would agree with that. I mean, Garfield is sort of a I think there's two ways to look at it. I think that Garfield, when we look at the comics, he sort of is a stand-in character that seems to exist solely to ridicule John. When you really look at the comics, I mean, I most of them are really just at the expense of John. But when you remove Garfield from it, it's even worse. So I agree with that interpretation of the essay you're referring to, or the YouTube video essay you're referring to, because yeah, I could definitely see Garfield as some sort of like incubus for just drawing out worsening the state of John's mental state, uh, or even as just a delusion of John, an isolated, lonely man who is imagining a beast for company, but that beast is itself his own, what would you say, his own self critique of himself being imagined to mock him and ridicule him.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Oh, there's
I
the link. Beautiful. Okay, I
I
got
ju-
something to do later.
I just yeah. I just, um
Okay, I'm gonna check that
yeah
out.
yeah. But he did a very in depth hour and like 20-minute video on it. Um, but that as well isn't Garfield like one of those properties that can be molded and mended without copyright interference at all.
I think that I'm not really sure after the Viacom acquisition how that really plays out nowadays, but I'm pretty sure that they've traditionally in the past. I mean, Jim Davis has, as long as you're manipulating it in some way, in some creative way, he's been pretty lenient. I mean, I don't recall any sort of lawsuits or anything like that for infringement, unless it was blatant. But I don't know. Viacom acquired Garfield a few years back, and I'm not sure if anything like that has changed. But we haven't really seen any insane lawsuits. So yeah, I think the creative liberty is still preserved.
Absolutely.
I mean, one look at Twitter will tell you that they allow people to post as much weird Garfield stuff as they want.
Definitely Twitter, definitely YouTube as well.
Hmm.
It feel like Garfield does feel almost like a public entity at this point in terms of how has been molded and transformed is a interesting thing.
Oh yeah, he's a part of the American mythology at this point. He's instantly recognizable even to people who have never read the comic, and he's just kind of always existed and always there. And I think I was a few weeks ago, we did the birthday episode. He's officially, the comic itself is about 45 years old.
Yeah,
Um,
I watched that episode. That was a good episode.
oh,
I wa-
thank you. Thank you.
yes, yes,
But, but yeah, I mean, that's, so if you are under the age of 45, Garfield's been around your entire life
yep,
or since before you were born.
basically,
He's yeah, and he's a as a property, it's over a multi-billion-dollar industry, as I learned in one of our previous episodes with the autistic Garfield merchandise collector.
hmm.
Um, primary sales of Garfield merchandise alone are almost $1 billion in revenue annually. So that doesn't
Oh,
even
that's
account for, yeah, it
11,
doesn't even account for licensing or anything like that. So it's just truly a behemoth.
11 billion or 11 million.
I said almost a billion, 1 billion.
Oh, almost a billion. I was gonna say 11 billion. Holy
Yeah.
shit. Uh,
Yeah, but that's only in primary sales, right? So that's,
yeah,
that's sans, secondary sales, sans licensing, sans, television, sans advertising. So I think it's safe to assume it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is a behemoth, right?
yeah.
Um, but sort of one that flies under the radar. Um,
Count If you count Garfield as a manga, if
yeah, basically.
you count Garfield as a manga, technically it's longer than One Piece. So
That's right. Yeah. Garfield has trumped One Piece, so One
game
Piece
over,
still has
man.
it has a ways to go. I don't know if the adventures of Luffy have come to a conclusion yet, or if they're still ongoing.
They're
But
still going. Oda, listen, Oda, eat your heart out, but man, you will never be able to beat that orange cat, man.
I'm
Uh,
sorry, dude. You,
it's
not
Rubber
even
Man,
close.
Rubber Man versus Rubber like young adult versus orange fat cat. Orange fat cat wins all day. All right, it's
That's what I'm
over.
saying. That's what I'm
Game
saying.
over, man.
That straw hat, that's going in the belly of an orange tabby cat.
Yeah, it's gonna be cooked.
Game over.
Gonna be cooked
Mm-mm.
with the
Whatever
lasagna.
whatever the fucking fruit is, Garfield's eaten all of them. He's become a god.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, so if One Piece is still ongoing, they might be able to one day outrun Garfield. But I don't think Garfield's ever going to stop. I think Nickelodeon has plans for Garfield, since Nickelodeon is a subsidiary of Viacom, which owns
Yes.
Garfield, and I've
He
seen.
was in he was in
Hmm.
our All-Star Battle. He just it was like the other the Smash clone they made.
Oh,
He
was he really?
Yeah, yeah, they added him. I forget. It was like a little bit after the game came out, basically. But yeah, they put him in.
Okay.
Eh,
Oh wow. Okay. So that completely like flew by my radar. So I'm
He
gonna have to
he's
check that
got
out.
a yeah, he's got a stage too and everything.
That's cool.
It's art, man. Art.
I really wish Garfield had a Super Saiyan form. Kind of like how Sonic the Hedgehog goes like supersonic. Uh, I'm trying to think back. I don't know if he really does.
What would be his ability when he goes Super Garfield? Would he just be like he'd be like a yellow cat, and then
Yeah.
he just his jawline would become even more like open. I don't know.
Yeah, he'd get a chiseled jawline. He'd turn yellow. He'd levitate in the air, and he'd become impervious to Mondays.
Yeah, yeah. He'd be in like a
Untouchable.
he'd be like Jiren
Yes,
constantly
sir.
in a fucking meditation state.
That's right. Yeah, he'd be transcendental. Actually, I think he'd
Yeah,
have. I think he'd have. He'd be in a constant meditative pose, just serene peace all around him, impervious to all harm.
yeah, they're not ready for that, dude. They're not ready.
No, Jim Davis says he reads my letters, I'm sure, but he does not respond or take my suggestions into consideration. It seems, but
I'm
super Garfield will one day become a thing. I hope.
yeah. Oh
Anyways,
yeah. Uh,
anyways,
he puts them in the back of his head. I'm sure he's got to look at those letters.
I'm sure he's refining them. I'm sure he's collecting all my letters and he's compiling them. And it's not that he's ignoring them and not putting them into practice. It's just my ideas, they're so good. He has to deliberate and really make sure and really fine tune them before incorporating them into the comics going forward.
Yeah, he's not trying to take a doc out of his pay too, man. Pay that oh my god, pay that royalty check.
That's true. That's true. I would demand a very high royalty check.
I think anybody
Um,
would. I think
I
anybody.
mean, come on, if you invented Super Garfield,
Oh yeah.
I'm at least getting, let's be real. I'm at least getting a milli a year for Super Garfield. Come on.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
anyways, do you write yourself? Do you work on anything yourself in terms of the written work?
Yeah, I mean I have written stuff like I took a creative writing class and a craft of fiction class, so I did write for those. I've been on break, so you know I've just been resting as of now. Um, because when I write, you know, I associate that with work, and
Mm,
so when I'm on break, I'm on break. I'm not writing. I'm not even reading, other than watching some YouTube and Netflix, and
I
that
gotcha.
yeah, I'm chilling because I'm to the point where when I read a thing, that thing is reading that thing is work no matter what, even if it's off time. It's like work.
I feel you on that. I feel like a lot of people get that way. Like how they say that chefs a lot of times, like chefs when they come home, they just eat like fast food or just like, like raw vegetables cuz like their work all day is cooking. Why would I come home and, work?
Yeah,
Um it's the same way for me too. Like people will send me like articles concerning like economics or like financial topics, and I'll be like, "Listen, I just got off out of my job at like 6 p.m. All right, looking at fucking uh, bank loan debt and equity accounts. All right, I don't want to look at this right now. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm done for
yeah,
the fucking day. Don't send me this.
yeah. Nah, I even for me, like I'm super passionate about it. I love it, but even I'm like, all right, yeah. When I'm on break, I'm on break. That's that.
That's it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
uh I did watch I finished that show on Netflix called You with Joe Goldberg. Very very interesting last season.
I've not heard of this show. Can you give me a synopsis of this program?
Okay. So Joe Goldberg is a was a bookstore um manager slash owner,
Hmm.
and he stalks women
Oh
and
no,
then gets in relationships with the women and is also a serial killer, and that's the show.
that's no good.
Yeah, it's a good thriller. But in the are you gonna watch it?
I might. I tend not to have a lot of free time these days, so I might not. So I don't care if you spoil it, but
Yeah.
our
Spoilers,
listeners.
spoilers,
Okay, spoilers. Blip.
spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. So like the fourth season, um, basically, right?
Actually, real quick, I'm gonna keep recording and everything, but I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick because this coffee is like flowing through me. But
Okay,
go ahead and freestyle on the spoilers here while I go to the bathroom. I'll be
okay,
right back. I'll be
o-
I'll be right back. I promise.
o-
All right,
okay,
keep recording. Don't stop it.
okay,
I'll cut
okay,
it all out in post.
okay.
Whoa. All right, sorry.
All right, so you got back just in time as I finished discussing.
Okay, perfect.
Should I rediscuss it even even faster?
Yeah. Okay. This time, go double speed.
Okay,
Explain it
so
even faster.
basically, right, after season three, where he fakes his death and blows up the house, right, with his wife and kills his wife and shit and fakes his death. Um,
Hmm.
he goes to London and to stalk this girl, and it goes to shit. And essentially, right, fucking, he's like, all right. It starts out where it's like from his perspective, he let her go, but in reality, right, later on in the season, turns out, right, he has an alternate personality, and he locked the girl in the big ass glass cubicle, and he gained this alternate personality from bumping his head once on it in anger. It was
Holy
really
shit.
it was really dumb, and he murdered like I think seven people by the end of the season, and yeah,
Damn.
yeah, he murdered a bunch of other people while he was in this alternate personality too. So pretty crazy. He had like dissociation or whatever it's called.
Do you think that holds up in court if you're like, Your Honor, I was a different guy? It wasn't me.
If you, I mean, you can plead insanity, but it's like you really your lawyer has to really fucking prove it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like that. It definitely seems like something somebody would make up to get out of trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure people have gone schizo mode and like shifted into like a new personality. But definitely sounds made up. So make sure you have a good lawyer if you're going
yeah.
that route.
But here's my thing: he murdered
Mm,
like two politicians in the season, and then killed
based.
them, and then kills tries to kill himself after, and then gets admitted to the hospital. And it's like it makes no sense that he wouldn't get caught because earlier in the season, his DNA got fudged up with the other politician he killed.
Mm.
So it's like, as he gets admitted to the hospital, they would have caught him. It would have been Dunzo. It made no sense. I was watching because it was like the last episode of this the season, and it was
Listen,
like, yeah, it was just like, oh my god, this is
li-
so dumb.
listen, folks. This is why you have to pay your writers. All right, this writers' strike is equaling the is affecting the quality of these
I think
programs.
I mean, this came out before the writer's strike, so
Oh, okay. Well, then that's on the writers. You guys fucked up here.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like the acting and everything is really good. There's no debate about that. The guy who plays Joe Goldberg does a really good job. Same thing with everybody else. But it was just like so many controversies and conveniences this season. It was like they tried to make him like fucking Dexter, and it just did not work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you
and
got to be unique. You can't try to be Dexter. There's already Dexter. If people
yeah,
want to watch Dexter, they're going to watch
exactly.
Dexter. Come on.
Yeah,
Do
although
something else.
Dexter's not doing really hot either with that last season, from what I heard.
No, I think it's really weird that they brought Dexter back because it was kind of closed, signed and sealed. And then
Yeah,
they brought it back for some new seasons. It's like, what? Why? It's
well,
weird.
because they wanted to do a new ending, because the old ending was shit, where he becomes a lumberjack and just hides out the rest of his days as a fucking lumberjack.
Yeah.
And so the new season kind of tries to evoke that, and then it's like, or change that, and it's like, oh well, now Dexter's dead and has a son, and his son's now a serial killer. Okay, cool. Like it's even worse ending.
That's the gayest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
That's the laziest writing I've ever heard in my life.
yeah, it is really dumb.
Yeah.
I'm just yeah, you hate to see it. You hate to
You,
see it.
you really hate it. I mean, what you gotta wonder is like, do you think the studio is just paying the writers shit and so they're just like not giving a fuck? They're just writing slop? Because like I gotta like, I'm not exactly a literature guy, an English guy major or whatever, but I like to write from time to time. And I find that like whenever I'm writing something, I reread like a paragraph I've written over and over and over again. And just to make sure it's like good and it makes sense and it's not dumb and idiotic. And I feel like these guys are just like, nah, let's just fucking, we got to get it out by this time. Who cares? I don't know. Fuck it. His son's going to be a serial killer. Let's go with it. That's going to be the direction of the show.
Yeah,
They don't pay me enough for this.
yeah. Usually when I write stuff, I usually like to get somebody to check it out and then go back through and redo it after.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't know if these people have really good QA testers or whatever the fuck they're called for TV shows and shit, but I know for video games they're called QA testers. Um,
Yeah. It's just proofreading. I mean, I think Bill Hader had
they got
he,
editors.
yeah, but I heard something that Bill Hader said one time that was really kind of interesting. He said that the best thing you're ever going to write is you can't do it doing it yourself. You have to show it to people and get criticism from them.
That's so true.
Um,
That's
but
absolutely true.
but what he said that made that interesting because that's sort of common sense, right? You show people things, you get criticism, and that's how you make it better. But the
Yeah.
thing that he said that interested me because it was kind of unique, I'd never heard before. He said that the things that they're going to criticize about what you've written that you show them, it's going to be true. Like what they're saying is true that this doesn't make sense. The relationship between this character and this character doesn't make sense, and it needs to be fixed. And he said, like that's something that is true and you need to fix. But what he said is you should outright ignore the second part about what they're going to say because they're going to offer their opinion on how to fix it, and
Mm,
their opinion is always going to be wrong. So
yeah.
his advice was just whenever somebody criticized a part of your writing, they're right, but whatever suggestion they make to fix it is wrong. So ignore their suggestion to fix it, but know that there is an issue there that you have to fix.
I think it's like it might depend on the advice too. and who you're getting it from. If you're
Yeah.
get if you're getting it from Joe Schmo, then
Yep.
um probably not. But if you're getting it from like a oh my god a a workshop, that's
Hmm.
probably it's probably good to take that advice. Depending, um, I know for craft of fiction, I kind of did that where I listened to what everybody said about my story, and then I took it and then just fucking listened to what they said and almost went in a crazy direction, redid what I did before, and then did even more on top of that. I think it ended up being like 17 pages or something like that. It ended up being a lot by the end.
Mm.
But and I remember too, I was that that semester I went crazy for the finals of everything, and I did two finals in the same day, and it ended up being like 30 pages I wrote by the end of the day because
Damn.
yeah I literally I shit you not because I was just kind of not stalling but semi procrastinating for this last one because I knew it was gonna be long. And finally, right, I was just like, you know what, I'm fucking doing it. And
Yeah.
I literally typed up like fucking all those. It went from like 8 pages to like 20 something pages, and I did it all in that night, and it was fucking insanity. I I I I I did, and I edited it too that same night. I did really good. I got an A on it. But
Well,
yeah, no.
congrats.
Yeah, it was crazy that I did that.
It reminds me of NaNoWriMo. Do you know what NaNoWriMo is?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. So I don't know if it's still a thing, but when I was younger, when I was in like high school and stuff, there was something that I used to do. There was I guess an organization called NaNoWriMo, which was an abbreviation for National uh Novel Writing in 1 month or something. I don't know how it fucking breaks down, but basically the
Mm,
idea was you have 30 days to write a novel from start to finish, um, with a minimum amount of character requirements in order to, quote unquote, succeed or achieve the goal. Uh, and I remember when I would do that, like, yeah, it would just be an insane crunch. I would have to pump out uh like 10 pages a day, but I can't remember what the font or whatever was, but it was something like you had to pump out like 5,000 words a day or something like that just to
yeah,
like
most
meet
people
the
couldn't do that.
criteria.
Most most
Yeah.
most people just couldn't do that. I couldn't do that, and I read a lot.
Yeah.
I'm an English major, so um I don't even think I could do that because the thing is, right, when
Mhm.
you're the 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 best part of writing is getting inspiration, and you can't get inspiration in a month like that and write a whole novel in a month like that.
Mhm.
You need to brainstorm, you need to find that inspiration from experience, and you need to like usually, and especially for TV shows and shit, because that's like a collaboration. But you know you just wouldn't be able. I don't think I would be able to write a whole novel in a month. I unless I was
Mhm.
in a cabin in the woods and that's all I could do. And even then, I don't even think I would get it done because like I would just be shot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if you had I think in my case, I was in high school, so I just had a lot of free time, so I could do it.
Mm,
And I was just making shit up. But in terms of like writing something that's significant, like I think you're right. I think you want to pull on life experience, and that's hard to do in 1 month unless you have accumulated, a certain level of life experience up to that point that you can kind of draw from. I think Stephen King, like famously, doesn't even. Have you ever read Cujo by Stephen King?
I think I never read it, but I feel like I've heard of it. What's it
Yeah,
about?
it's about the dog that goes crazy and kills everybody. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. But he famously doesn't remember writing that book because he wrote the whole novel in one night, and he was completely hammered. He said he was like basically blackout drunk and on cocaine, and like wrote the whole book in one night, doesn't even remember writing it.
yeah,
Um
you definitely would need stimulants for that.
yeah,
Um,
but it's one of those things where like I think you can write something like that, whether you think Cujo is a good book or a bad book. I mean, it's obviously people know of it. If you reference Cujo, people will know what you're talking about. And I think that that's because he's accumulated a certain level of life experience or writing experience where he can be blackout drunk and not even know what he's doing and spit something out that's received
yeah,
well.
it really is
you know.
experience. It absolutely is experience. It's the same thing with I forget his name. Oh my God, what's that movie? It's in the 80s, and they're all in detention.
Oh, Breakfast Club.
Yeah, Breakfast Club. The guy who wrote that in like a day.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that was just based off experience. But even still, right, it's like he wrote that whole script in a day, and I guarantee you he was doing stimulants, nonstop coffee. And it's a mindset thing too, you know what I mean? You have to be incredibly passionate about that thing you're writing,
Hmm.
to do it in a day. It,
Oh,
it's
it was the '80s, I'm sure.
it's super fucking rare. Super
Yeah.
rare.
I don't know. It's interesting to think about the world of literature and to think about the contributions that it both makes to society and takes from society. Because I think, like most things, it's circular. We're talking about people who both had experience in I guess the art of imagination, you might call it, as well as the experience of real life situations. And most literary works, one of the criteria that's taken into consideration by institutions and academics when looking to classify something as a piece of literature, as opposed to just some uh, random written work, is that uh, its cultural context and relevance, right?
Right.
So I think that that's kind of interesting. I know you say that Moby Dick, obviously Moby Dick sucks, right, to the modern reader because it's long, it's it's boring,
And really
it,
boring.
it's really boring. As Shakespeare once said, brevity is the soul of wit, and brevity in Moby Dick is nowhere to be seen. And I think that you can interpret that one of two ways. One, in a contextual time based way, where in that era, it maybe wasn't so uncommon to do. And, people had a lot more free time. They could get a lot more invested in something like that. And they didn't need it to be concise. Or two, that the long drawn out nature of the novel itself is sort of imposing on you, the reader, the feeling of the long, isolated voyage being undertaken by Captain Ahab and his crew,
Yeah.
and how just like mentally taxing it is. I think you can take it many different ways, but I think that the whole idea of something being based in sort of the cultural context of its time is interesting to think of as well.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. To be fair, right? Like Moby Dick has a lot of those lived in experiences which are good and should be studied, but Lord have mercy, is it quality in terms of being drawn out. No, I don't think, but it is quality in terms of things you can take from it and learn from it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, yeah, there's like a cultural aspect to like where that may have just been the style of writing at the time. But famously, you mentioned Garfield being almost sort of like a Lovecraftian figure. H.P. Lovecraft, somebody who's like insanely influential nowadays in terms of his work. If you go back and you read his stories, they are just super flowery, super like just verbose writing for no reason. And I remember at the time when I read them at the time, I thought like, oh, it's probably just because it was old. But no, I if you look back at it, people back then were even like they criticized them. They were like, why are you writing like this? Like you're writing like it's 100 years ago, even for his time.
the thing is with Lovecraft, right? Is it's like he was he was agoraphobic. So
Yeah.
he was completely afraid of society, and that entirely influenced his writing, right? So and
Hmm.
but he was also, and a lot's come out actually. He was a little bit racist. When he was talking about like the fish people, right? That's sort of an
Yeah.
allegory for racism, basically.
Well, yeah,
So
I mean that racism and agoraphobia go hand in hand. You're afraid of the outside world, you're afraid of the other, which I think influenced his stories, like you're talking about with the fish
yeah,
people, and also just like the unknowable scariness of what's unknown. Like that is 100% something that's at the deep subconscious of like a racist person. They're scared of the other, you know.
yeah, it is
It-
interesting.
It's interesting how writers' personal experiences can come into their works, not just in like a literal sense, like in like Osama Dazai or Dazai, however you pronounce his name, like in his works, like especially No Longer Human or whatever, as essentially basically an autobiography, right? It's a very much like directly pulling from his experience. Whereas with like H.P. Lovecraft, it's pulling from his experience, but it's pulling from his subconscious fear of going outside and interacting with people who he views as different, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
less autobiographical and more just pulling on my experience and my own feelings.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Same thing. It's the same thing with like uh The Godfather and crime dramas. They're like inspired by real events, but they're
Hmm.
very romanticized. So it's the same.
Sure.
It definitely could be said that is the case for HP. That maybe it is romanticized racism.
I think it definitely is. I mean, I think
Yeah,
when he talks about fish people and the cultists and all that, he's
definitely fish people. Definitely fish people.
yeah,
No debate.
no,
That
no debate.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
You don't write an allegory like that and then be like, oh, well, you know, I'm just scared of the ocean. Oh,
No, come on. You're not just scared of the ocean. You're scared of something else.
yeah,
Yeah, he was scared of a lot of things. And weirdly enough, very anti-Semitic, but had a Jewish wife at one point. Very
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Like it's so strange.
Yeah. These people. they're quite something else.
The true ultimate auteur, Jim
Hmm.
Davis. Anyway, so
That's true. Jim Davis is the greatest of all time. And
he's pure of heart. He's never had a single controversy, and
no,
he never will.
he never will. He's never done anything wrong.
He,
And I
he,
do think that John in the comics of Garfield, I think that Jim Davis pulls on his own experience, and John is sort of a self insert for himself, right? This is very sort of Osama Dazai esque, right? Where one of the main characters of your works is basically just you, right? You're
yeah,
putting yourself in there and drawing from your own experience. I think John literally is a cartoonist professionally in the comics as well. It's not very it's not very subtle what's going on there, which makes me, makes me kind of concerned about Jim Davis's personal life if John is supposed to be him, because John is not doing well, especially if you remove Garfield from the panels. Um,
Mm,
I don't know. That's something to look into. We should check in. I'm gonna write Jim Davis more letters. I'm gonna say, "What's going on, pal? What are you up to?"
no.
Uh, One of the truly great American mangas and animes, Garfield the cat.
Yes. The greatest manga literature made written work of our and of all generations.
Of any generation, yeah.
Yeah, of all.
Anything hitherto prior or going forward will not compare.
Yes.
Except for Garfield, which will go forward in perpetuity
Yeah. Garfield
until
is
the world ends.
Garfield is never stopping. He just keeps going.
No,
He just keeps
no.
going. He keeps chomping on the lasagna.
Until the sea starts to boil and every last human life is snuffed out, there will be a giant orange cat face in the sky in the place of where the sun used to be. And then that'll be the end.
Yes.
That'll be the
Yes.
end of Garfield and life.
As we know it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, basically. That would be it. Anyways. All right. Let's see. How long do I got on the recording? Do we have a full episode, baby? Let's see.
It's an hour and 2 minutes, it says for me.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, basically we do, because
Alright.
usually my episodes are about 40, 45 minutes. So I
Do you have a
think we're good.
do you have a closing?
I do have a closing.
Okay,
Um,
we'll do the closing and we'll call it a day.
let's do the closing. Do you have anything to plug, by the way, before I do the closing?
I do have my YouTube, so although I haven't really posted on it lately, um I have my YouTube channel, Taker's channel. I upload gaming clips usually on there. And also I have my group called The Boys, DABOYZ. Um and we've had a podcast in the past. Um, I would if you're looking for that, go on I think his my friend's channel is called Gator Gaming. There's a couple old episodes. We might start it up again. We might not. It depends. But those old episodes are really good. So if anybody wants to see that, you can. And yeah, yeah.
Oh, all
If
right.
there's enough interest, I might make more stuff. We'll see.
All right. Well, show the literature experts some love over either on Gator Gaming, Taker's channel, or in any of the various episodes of The Boys.
Yes.
Let them know if you want to hear more of that kind of uh, stuff.
Yes.
But as always, thank you for joining me, literature expert. I'm going to go ahead and end this right here. It's been a pleasure having you on with me today, getting some real insight into the world of written work. And yeah, it's just been a really great pleasure. So, as always, this has been Garphonomics, the world's best official, unofficial Garfield based economics and politics podcast and literature podcast as of today. We will see you next time. Bye bye.